This afternoon, amid sweeping ongoing firings all across the federal government, one federal judge told the Trump administration, no, not so fast. The ruling came out of the Northern District of California, and it orders the Departments of Veterans Affairs, Defense, Energy, Interior, and Agriculture to offer thousands of fired probationary federal workers their jobs back effective immediately. It goes back to the Office of Personnel Management's written and spoken directive, deemed an illegal one, it would seem. It cut loose probationary employees in those agencies we named. Today's order suggests that the government's process was, quote, a sham, as some employees were told they were being let go based on their performance, which was not ever the case. While the judge did say that there is nothing wrong or illegal with what's called reductions in force, he suggested, quote, it is sad, a sad day, when our government would fire some good employee and say it was based on performance, when they know good and well that's a lie. Joining us now is a former federal employee at the U.S. Forest Service, about to be reinstated, Catherine Steele. We first met Catherine following Donald Trump's joint address to Congress when she was interviewed by our friend and colleague Jacob Soboroff. And with us at the table, former top official at the Department of Justice, MSNBC legal analyst Andrew Weissmann. Andrew, first take me through the ruling, what it does and doesn't say.
Sure. So what the court was saying is, look, there are legal ways to do this. By the way, that sounds a lot like Senator Lisa Murkowski, who, when she was commenting on what was going on, where you can do a legal reduction in force. There are various ways to do that. You can also fire people for cause. That means that means there has to be a reason, a poor performer. What you can't do is pretend it's for cause when it's not. And that's why the judge said, you know what, you're lying. This is the federal government. I mean, it's not just that, we have an example here of somebody, a person who's hurt, who's representative, thousands of people who are hurt, who are defamed by their own government, saying that they're being let go because of their performance when it has nothing to do with that. And this is not a private party who shouldn't be doing that. This is your government doing it. And that's why Judge Alsop, who was overseeing this, was so completely sort of disgusted with what was going on.
Catherine, what does this mean for you?
I'm very hopeful that this will mean that I will get to go back to doing the work that I really value and really love, but I have not heard anything yet.
When you were fired, how did they convey what this judge describes as a, quote, sham, that this was about your performance?
Yeah, so I was given a verbal notice from my supervisor, and then I was given an email the following day that kind of follows the same principle that you were talking about, that it pointed towards my performance being the reason for my termination.
Catherine, do you feel like you can make any plans, or do you feel like you sort of wake up every day to see what your status is?
I think it has very much felt like whiplash of not knowing what's going to happen. Even now, I get to potentially go back to my job, but I don't feel secure that will last very long.
I mean, Andrew, that seems like a type of, and I think they've said this out loud. I think the person that Donald Trump tapped to be his head of OMB described a wish to, quote, traumatize the federal workforce. Is that legal?
No. I mean, what's amazing to me, these are people who have elected to be public servants. And, they make a perfectly fine living, but it's, there usually is a fairly big sacrifice because they feel like public service and doing something for the public is important. Even when you do a legal reduction in force where you have to let people go, you owe those people so much. I mean, this is a combination of both unlawful action, which you never should see your own government engaging in, dishonesty, which you should never see anyone, but particularly your government. And then your point is the complete lack of decency in the way it's carried out. We're speaking to somebody who's one example of, from working in the government, I know of people who are really good people doing this as a matter of service to the country.
Catherine, if you had an opportunity, would you want to go back and work for the federal government, or has this discouraged you from wanting to do that kind of work?
It's definitely discouraging, but I think ultimately we are public servants for a reason because we want to do this crucial work. We want to serve the public. And so that's very much still where my heart is. And I hope that I'm able to return and, really put my best foot forward into the busy season that we have coming.
Just remind folks what your job is and who's doing it or what's happening at the parks without people like yourself there.
Yeah, so I work in recreation with the National Forests, and so I oversee campgrounds and day use areas, hiking trails. Luckily, it's kind of the off season right now. We're prepping because most of our campgrounds open on April 1st. So it's definitely go time. So I hope that I can get back out there and help to prepare these areas to open on April 1st.
And what were your colleagues, was it a trimming down? Was it a reduction in the group of people that do what you do? Or was your entire sort of function eliminated in the firings?
Luckily, I think, my department was in a better spot than a lot of others and that we did have good staffing. But I think a lot of departments saw almost total wipeouts of their staff, and so they have no one to perform these duties.
Andrew, at what point does the sort of crush of legal defeats and public opinion push back against these mass firings?
I was thinking about that coming here today because I think what you are seeing, because you have the abdication, you have three branches of government, just to take it to the basics, and you have Congress, and you have the executive, and you have the courts, and you have one branch of government that is completely out of the picture. They are just not acting at all. And I don't blame the Democrats because they're not in the majority. And there may be strategies they could employ, but they don't have the votes. And so you end up with the executive, and it appears by all accounts, in spite of a litany of defeats over and over and over. I mean, I was just thinking about Judge Alsup had the most scathing comments today, but you know what? So did Judge Howell. When was that? Yesterday. I mean, yeah. So, and you know what? Then you can go back over it, that they're just defeat after defeat after defeat on clearly not decent conduct, but unlawful, unconstitutional conduct. And it appears that what the executive is doing here is saying, we're doing whatever we want until someone stops us. There seems to be no sense of, you know what, we can't do that. And just one vignette that's important here with respect to, that I think Catherine will really appreciate, is there was supposed to be a hearing in this case in San Francisco, and the head of OMB, who had submitted an affidavit, was supposed to show up and testify, and he didn't. And he just refused to. And the reason he refused to, it's clear to me, is because he was going to have to be cross-examined on, tell me about how you made these firings based on cause. How did you, with respect to each of these people, how did you determine that they were poor performers when their reviews were good? I mean, it was clear, like, this is why Judge Alsup said this is a lie. And so even the government, like, they took this action, they would not even show up in court to testify.
Catherine, are you still being paid and provided with any of the benefits that you had when you were an employee? Or if you don't want to answer that, you and your former colleagues who were also fired?
No, I have not received any payments since then, although I had heard a memo that potentially we would get back pay if we are reinstated.